Morning at NTV. Indeed, it's a very gratifying day that we have you watching NTV from wherever you're watching from. I'm Andrew Chamagero Muntuawensi, and today it's another remarkable day. We're talking politics. Yesterday, you saw one party that went a little bit, their approach is that they're calling for demonstration. It's within the Constitution. But today, we're very honored to have an elder in the world of politics, Mama Alice Alasu. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew, and good morning, viewers.
Happy New Year. I've taken long without seeing you, ever since you went into the campaigns and all that. It's humbling for me to meet you after elections and all that.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you. Yes, we went into the election, and
it was tough.
Elections in this country can really both be exciting and I think also very traumatizing.
Okay.
So when you go through one circle of campaigns and you get back here, you simply tell yourself or you thank God for having brought you thus far.
How was it like on the ground? Because ANT, this was its first nationwide campaign from grassroots to the national level. Yes. How was it for a party that is that was the second last entrant into the arena?
Well, the entire philosophy that drives the ANT is that you should have an institutional framework.
Okay.
And then it is value-based, the things we've always spoken about. So we made a decision to go into the election quite conscious that we had not gotten the framework.
The grass level.
This grassroots structures
Yes.
in place. And so we said, but there will still be dividends that will arise from our participation.
Yes.
Where they don't know the ANT, let's use this opportunity for them to know that somewhere in the political arena of Uganda,
there is ANT.
There is ANT.
Yes.
And that we achieved. We went to all the districts of Uganda talking about ANT, the values-based leadership, people of integrity, what you need in leadership. Yeah. That one we gave them. And it was what we benefited. The second thing, of course, so it increased our visibility.
Yeah.
The second thing is that then we created focal points where there were no committees. We got an individual running on the ANT ticket.
Wow.
And so that person became like ANT in that
focal point in that area.
A focal point in that area. And then the third one, we actually benefited. We won some seats. It was amazing. We had a presidential candidate, as you well know, General Muntu.
Yes. And
people would tell us, this is the person, this is a good one. He should be the next president. But for some reason, they didn't give us the votes to make him the next
And you're making
president.
audit of that, I'm sure.
Yes. And then we also fielded the parliamentary candidates, close to about 120. 6 or so of them were compromised and bought off. But we remained with about 114 or so that ran full time.
For starters, I think that was good.
Yeah, it was. We by our own standards, we felt that was a big achievement.
Without structures, and you have all these numbers?
Yes, and this candidate self-financing. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the money. We tried to fundraise, but it was difficult. And so, we didn't get any one of them through, but we also sensed that there was deliberate targeting, even where we should have got through, like Ginger East. Ginger East, and some up to the close of business, Honorable Mweru was leading. And then from one polling station, which sprouted up from nowhere, then they say
everything overturned.
Yes, and then the army doing whatever it did. And so there you get the shock. Honorable Mweru does not go through. Honorable Karuhanga was doing a good job, but on election day, the army took over.
Everything changed.
Everything changed. Honorable Wadri, we have no clue, but, he was on top of the game initially. And then myself, up to the last 3 days, 7 out of 10, you do a survey. Yes. But money and the army changed the things. The army this time did not beat people in Serere, by the way.
But what was the tactic?
They were just distributing money. So an army man meets you and says, Andrew, vote for so and so, vote for the woman MP,
Wait a
and
minute.
vote for President
Honorable,
Museveni.
you're saying that you saw a military man in a military fatigue
In a
coming and telling
military
you,
vehicle, collecting people in a school and distributing money with my naked eyes. I didn't even put on lenses.
you could not believe the industrial scale this was happening. With all the challenges that happened, and from your perspective and your political lenses as ANT, what did this show you? Did it tell you that you have to go back and redraw the strategy? Did it shock you to the levels of like, wait a minute, we need to backtrack on this?
No, the primary thing is really, and standard practice in
Yeah.
management, is that you review, you evaluate what you've just done. And so the post-election review is a big thing on our table right now, and it should take place in the next few months.
Oh, yes.
And but there are things that were learnt there and then.
Like?
Like Ugandans seem to know what they want, but they don't have the courage to go for it.
And what is causing that fear? Because what is taking away the courage? I know what I want, but I'm a little bit skeptical. Should I really vote Alice? For my safety, I'm not going to. But I know that Alice can deliver.
Yes.
What could be the trigger of that?
So probably to navigate around that is to encourage Ugandans to be more bold.
Okay.
That the real decision concerning who leads them is in their hands, first and foremost.
Nice.
So we need to work on that with stakeholders like you people in the media. And then we are talking about selling or buying the votes.
Yes.
It takes two to tango. And again, Ugandan service take a role to play, whether they want to sell their votes and get the quality of leadership the buyers can give them. That one is something we will be engaging this country on. But at our level, we learned that it's important to have structures. And we had always known, so we had always wanted to do that. And so in the next 5 years, it's some project that we're going to. And then our brand.
ANT.
ANT, values-based leadership. People of integrity in leadership, generating a critical mass of values-driven leaders to go into local governments, to go into the parliament of Uganda.
With integrity.
Yes, hardworking people. People who don't just think manna falls from heaven. You have to work at it.
For it, yes.
People who have a vision for gender and equity. People who have a vision for our young people, bringing out the best in them. Making this country a home of opportunity for all of us. And so it is something that we need to challenge Ugandans. Let me tell you, Andrew, expectations on leadership have fallen to its lowest possible level in Uganda. Ever. People don't think now you can have people of integrity as leaders. Everybody thinks...
It's about deals.
Yes. Cutting deals, everybody is corrupt, they will just in Ateso they say, oh, finish me here and now, meaning pay and what you do in the next 5 years.
I don't care.
I don't care.
So that's where the voters have been now. Monetization of elections in this country, it's a conversation we had with your party president and your presidential candidate, that is General Mugisha Muntu. For him, in the conversation we had, it didn't scare him. However, he said that once the mindset understands that money is just a conduit they will use against you later, then they will wake up to the occasion and they will demand for what they need. Has our audience and populace started to look at things in that critical lens?
I think yes and no. In some places, yes. In some places, no. And so it's an engagement that has to continue. We have to continue pumping it home that 2,000 shillings is not the ultimate that you expect from your leader. You should expect drugs in your hospitals. You should expect those in the executive to account for the taxes that you pay to them. You should, let them honor their promises. They don't promise you this in this election, and before they fulfill that, they promise you another, and they don't do that. So it is something that we all have to continue engaging on. In some places, money worked. In some places, it didn't work. But we need to get an all-round change of attitude.
When you look at the 360 you're talking about vis-a-vis the structures from the grassroots to the national level, if we make the structures and people understand how structures operate, will we achieve the numbers to go against the critical mass you're talking about, to go against the regime?
Yeah, structures are important in their own right. One, first of all, for mobilization. So if you have structures, say in Kalangala, while you are in Kampala, these structures will be mobilizing on a day-to-day basis, popularizing, branding, marketing the party. Secondly, structures are very important in vote protection. So again, vote protection, ensuring that you have your DR forms. You don't wait and have a stampede at the end of it, towards the tail end. Because this election is both an event and a cycle. Now the cycle has begun.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you don't
For the next election.
For the next election.
Some people are not watching it though. Some people are so very shallow that they can't see the next election has started. I see statements, politicians, they're throwing them like this one is campaigning already.
Yeah, I mean, but if you are a person who reads President Museveni and his team, I don't know who does the brain work for those guys. For them, they send you to this election when they're already thinking of the other one.
This one is already done deal.
Yeah, so you go to 2021, you are scampering on 2021, they're making strategies for 2026. You hear this 7-year debate, you hear this restoration of term limits.
Yes.
They're even thinking of 32. Is it 32, the next one?
Agenda 32.
Yeah, that is the next one. So if you allow them to contain you so much, I'm not saying that reviewing an election and even fighting to get reforms based on a past election is a wrong thing. It's perfectly in order. But also you need to immediately begin to have a long-term perspective. Yeah.
Let's talk about the EC approach during elections. In the wake of a lot of money being on the ground and for such a young party like ANT and the DR forms going as and when they wish to take them in their own format, in their own portal, did this in one way or the other, did it affect the decision makings and your tallings as a party?
Well, first of all, the EC itself, prior to the election, really did not give hope to other stakeholders, other than I think the NRM, because we had a situation of discussing the roadmap and the gatherings during the elections. And the EC stubbornly refused to take the views of stakeholders. This is the EC. You tell the EC, why don't you draw a roadmap which allows the presidential candidates to have a longer time, because they campaign in, I don't know how many districts. How many districts do we have now?
They keep coming up. But each presidential candidate had only 80 days to go around the country.
So you can imagine you get nominated today, and
you have to start immediately.
And the campaign period is less than 90 days.
And you're scheduled to be in Shema.
Yes.
Yet being
So that was something we found really irresponsible on the part of the EC. They didn't do a good job. They also didn't seem to, not just seem, they had no authority to enable them protect their presidential candidates. Once you get nominated, you become a property of the EC.
Of the EC, yes.
Yes. And so your movements, your program, your undertakings are all governed by the electoral rules in the country. Unfortunately, candidates could be beaten. Electoral campaign programs could be, thwarted, diverted, We were in Kamwenge, and some overzealous functionaries in Kamwenge stopped us from going to radios. We were in Singiro, they diverted us, they stopped. They did all manner of things. And then you ask yourself, who is in charge of the election? Is it the police? Is it the army? Is it the RDC? Is it the Electoral Commission? So I think the Electoral Commission absconded.
from its duty.
It did.
How best can we fix this? Because yesterday we had someone from the NUP party, right where you're seated, and he said that he has a problem with the Electoral Commission. For him, he went for a public vetting process where people should apply
Yeah.
to become the chairman of EC, that those powers should be taken away from the executive, that it becomes a public vetting process where Alice is going to apply and will be vetted on national television and we are watching, and Andrew will come and equally put, and then the committee therein will vote according to the competence and all that. What could be your approach to clean up the EC? Because opposition keeps saying that the EC has issues. Even Museveni says that EC connives with you, the opposition, to steal his votes. So everyone seems not to be competent. So as a nation, how best can we approach to have a very independent, transparent EC?
The problem with President Museveni's statement is that, so he says it,
yes,
and yet he knows the dealings he has with them. And he continues to hold on to them, you know, have state house meetings with the referee, direct the referee.
But the game is coming up.
Then he comes to say that for I don't know, public purposes and whatever. So that is not fair. He's the greatest beneficiary of the fact that he's the one who appoints the Electoral Commission. We have always talked about the mode of constituting the Electoral Commission. And I think that the first step would be to take it away from the presidency. The only challenge is that we have an overbearing executive, an overbearing president. He has too much power. So even if we say let it be by the Appointments Committee of Parliament, you know how our parliament is constituted.
Oh, yeah.
Structurally,
majority is the NRM.
Majority is the NRM, but it's also an extension of
the independence leaning.
It's an extension of the executive.
Oh,
It's
yes,
yes, the ministers, the NRM caucus, and all of them sit in parliament. So the moment you say the vetting and appointing authority, even if the process is by a public application, you will still end up with the NRM. We have structural problems in this country. So we can for the now convince ourselves and say, okay, let's make the application process public. Let people apply, and then maybe they'll be vetted, but by who? We've always talked about probably the judicial service, but then who appoints the judicial service, and so on and so. It's cyclic.
Structure.
It's cyclic. But then there are individuals in the Electoral Commission
who are integral,
who should have a conscience. First of all of them should have a conscience that their activities ultimately will affect the stability of this country, including them and their children's children. They will pay a very high price. So I think that while we are grappling with how best to make the Electoral Commission independent, those who are currently in the management of the EC should put country before self.
Wow. We saw the NUP, and I'm sure you saw this happening. They had a case, they took it to court around some corner. They withdrew the case, and yesterday their president said, now we are going to demonstrate. He's evoking Article 26 of the Constitution that allows them to protest in whatever case. However, the police comes out and said, listen, the Public Order Management Bill is very clear. We need to be notified, and it's the same thing that is happening in Senegal, where the opposition, Sonko, he told the people that if you're not dissatisfied, please come out and protest peacefully, though. With all these dynamics, do we have a headway of the democracy we're talking about as a country?
That's a difficult one, Andrew.
But you're an expert in politics. That's why I'm talking to an elder here.
It is a difficult one because we are caught up in a democracy which is a dictatorship. So you don't know how much of you don't know how much of your democratic freedoms you can express in Uganda. The Constitution will say peaceful demonstrations are okay. People should express their dissatisfaction, and then the police will come up with a law which was challenged, and after which, even when it was revised, they have abused it and they continue to misuse it, bringing in archaic things like preventive arrests and so, and ultimate brutality. In the streets of Kampala, they shoot husbands, they shoot women, they shoot children, they shoot anybody in the streets of Kampala.
In the line of their duty.
In the so-called line of their duty, just to stop one person from saying the election was rigged in my village. So that's why I say that it is a very challenging situation. NUP is, in my view, entitled to its approach, and constitutionally it is provided that people can do peaceful demonstrations. We can only hope against hope that the Kampala regime will be tolerant enough not to fear expression of dissatisfaction, which of course I know the answer for. They're going to be very, very high-handed. And oftentimes when I say to Ugandans, begin to pray that God stretches his hand and removes the dictatorship, because God has done it before and he can do it now. When I tell people,
are we going to wait for God when the Constitution allows, even when there are other modalities? Or you're saying that while people taking other approaches, they should still remain interceding before God?
Yes.
That the change they want can come?
Yeah, that's why I went for the campaign. I went and contested. We all went and contested. So we do our part, but also remember to make appeals and ask God to intervene. Because really, I see this country on a terrible trend. And unfortunately, those in charge do not seem to want to salvage the country. So our hope will then really have to be in the hands of God to help us salvage our country.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very deep. As we're finalizing this conversation, Mama Lasso, what could be your last word to the youth? You saw them, how jeered, how vibrant they were, robust on the ground, campaigning and canvassing, either for your party or for any other party. What are we missing as a youth generation when it gets to our politics of our country?
The challenge, first of all, the youth in this country are such a great opportunity and they have a lot of potential, and that has to be harnessed. The challenge I see is that nobody is making deliberate efforts to harness the youth potential in this country, whether they are village youth or town youth or graduate youth. All of them apparently have the same fate. There are no deliberate measures to help them realize their full potential.
Lack clarity.
Yes, and unfortunately, in the absence of deliberate measures to tap into this potential, then we are leaving them to become a time bomb, as we often call it.
Wow.
And so to the youth, the best we can do is the youth should mobilize themselves, get focused on the country that they want, and begin to work towards it. It is not enough to say this is youthful and then leave it there. It is more than what is required of them to move in that direction. This country needs a peaceful transition. We need to be able to transit from President Museveni's regime to another, but have this country intact. We don't want it to catch fire. That is one. Two, we need to have our youth get integrated into the decision making, mentored into leadership. Because if the young people miss that opportunity, soon enough, whether we want it or not, even whether the NRM wants it or not, the youth of today will soon enough be the leaders in this country. And what package are they going to carry there? Are they going to carry the package of corruption, carry the package of violence? Because violence begets violence.
True.
You beat them today in the street. Next week, they will be in charge. They will join the police force and also beat some other people. Next week, they will be in charge. They are the RDCs, they are the politicians, they will probably be the next president. So we need to harness this youth potential, package it for a transition, and also package it to run the country and offer qualitative leadership.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is Mama Ali Selasso from the Alliance of National Transformation Party, ANT. And those who have been joining this conversation from around the globe, she has very pertinent issues. Key thing, be clear as a youth in this country. What do you want? What vehicles are you using to make sure that you get there? That's your call to action. We'll take a break for now. It's still morning at NTV. Good morning.